Danielle Radcliffe, or Harry Potter himself, sat down with a group of 6 or 7 trans kids to give them the voice apparently that nobody else is giving them right now, even though it is the only voice that we are allowed to listen to, and tell all of us how best to deal with these trans issues, because apparently he knows better than anyone else how we should be talking about these things. Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. I would love it if you would subscribe, and if you're returning, welcome back. I appreciate your support, and I hope that you are subscribed as well. On my channel, I like to talk about current events, news, politics, anything going on in the world that I think needs another opinion, particularly one of logic, reason, and sanity, because it seems to be in short supply these days. Please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below, share it with others, and help me to grow this channel so I can reach more people that value logic, reason, and sanity. Also, be sure to head on over to Rumble and find me there under Outspoken Samantha in the event that YouTube decides I have violated their community standards and chooses to kick me off their platform forever. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So Danielle Radcliffe joined with the Trevor Project and hosted this group of trans kids so that they could all set the record straight on how we should be addressing these issues, basically instructing us parents to just let our kids call all the shots, to step out of the way, and instead of stepping in when our kids come up with ideas or the idea to do things that are harmful to them, that we just need to agree to everything they say and stop using our own maturity and life experience and ability to understand the bigger picture to stop them from making destructive choices, and instead just let things roll and see what happens.
Hi, I'm Dan Radcliffe. This week I was incredibly fortunate to get to meet 6 young people who agreed to come and share their stories with us, and also to have a conversation about allyship and the people in their lives who have shown up for them and made a positive impact on their lives and their journeys. So yeah, I'm excited to share that conversation with you.
According to an article in the Daily Mail UK, it says Danielle Radcliffe told transgender children that adults concerned about children changing gender are condescending. The Harry Potter actor, 33, told 6 trans and non-binary children at a roundtable organized by LGBTQ suicide prevention charity, the Trevor Project, that adults should just trust kids to tell us who they are. The whole idea behind this conversation is to have kids promote the idea, without saying the exact words, that every decision that they have made about their identity is entirely of their own independent thought, free from influence of parents, teachers, or activists of any kind, free from anyone that would have any agenda of self-interest to give them this idea, that they know exactly what they've signed up for.
I learned from, out of the cradle that I am, that I was a boy. I should like blue. I should like sports. I should be manly. I should like superheroes. Yeah. And I never associated myself with those things. And we are told that we're not old enough to know this yet.
This child is 11 years old, and they are clearly spouting the ideas that adults have told them. That what determines if you're a boy or a girl depends on if you like pink or blue, or if you like cars or Barbies, or if you like sports or art. I have a son who is 11 years old, and I have never, ever told him that he needed to be manly or to like manly things. I never told him he had to act like a boy. I bought toys and books that I thought he would like, and some things he played with, and some things he had absolutely no interest in. I never told him what color he had to like, or that he had to like superheroes, or that he had to like boy things. But the criteria that every single one of these kids and their activist parents who are going out of their way to find a reason to have a trans kid has never been anything that makes their kid any different than kids who do not grow up with the belief that they could be the opposite sex. They always say things like, I was born a boy, but I didn't like blue or dinosaurs or getting a haircut, so that's how I knew I was a girl. Guess what? Like, I have 2 boys. Neither one of them, their favorite color is blue. I have one that prefers red and one that changes his favorite color probably every single week. They both hate getting haircuts. My oldest son has never liked superheroes, and he has a much more gentle personality than his younger brother, and they're completely different people and they like completely different things. My middle son is much more interested in the things that would be stereotypically associated with boys, but if I applied the reasoning of a trans activist parent, this would mean that I have one son and one daughter between the two of them. And then my daughter came along and she played with cars and dinosaurs because that's what we had available, and she never had any problem with it. I even bought her her own cars and dinosaurs. And since she's still a child, the things that she likes changes constantly. And the things that she gravitates towards and that she's interested in changes constantly. And I allow her to explore whatever it is that she wants to try out. And I've never told her that because she has a particular kind of anatomy, that she has to like particular toys or she has to like particular colors. And differentiating between those things means that her gender identity or her sexuality is in question. The only difference between kids who grow up thinking that they can be the opposite sex are the adults in their lives and the agenda of the adults in their lives. The difference is whether or not these kids have parents that make them think that their gender identity is something that needs to be examined. Because the idea of gender identity is never even a consideration to children until an adult who uses a child's lack of maturity and understanding plants these ideas in their head before they even have a chance to think for themselves. Behaviorally, there is virtually no difference between kids who say they're trans and those who don't. And these kids don't know that behaviorally they are no different than their non-transgender peers, but their parents do. But if Danielle Radcliffe wanted to have a productive conversation about this, instead of just confirming activist ideas and talking points, he would have compared their responses to his own experiences in a more comprehensive way. If someone says, I was born a boy who knew I was a girl because I didn't like the color blue or superheroes, then Danielle Radcliffe's response should be, I knew I was a boy because I did like the color blue and I did like superheroes. But he didn't say that because the reality is that Danielle Radcliffe was able to grow up as a boy because none of the adults in his life jumped on the high suggestibility that he himself had as a child and convince him otherwise. And it's not like he himself grew up gravitating towards super manly things. The kid grew up surrounded by the arts. Both of his parents were actors. He was an actor. He was allowed to pursue what he was interested in without someone putting the idea in his brain that he needed to obsess about whether or not this aligned with his sexuality. And they just let him be a boy that had his own unique interests.
We don't give children enough credit for coming into this world and having a sense of purity and understanding for themselves. I definitely had that at a very young age, and I tried to express that a lot, but I grew up in a very stereotypically Christian family.
Okay.
So me telling my mom any type of me being different was oh my God, literally she called my grandma and they prayed over me. I was 7. I was
intense.
7. And at that very moment, it was very fearful, fear striking.
The only reason that this particular person was included in this conversation in this way was to represent Christian parents in a way that furthers the entirely false trans narrative that conservative Christian parents are bigoted and hateful, and therefore transitioning a child needs to be done in secret behind their backs. As we can see in numerous Democrat-controlled states in the country, there is a huge push for bills that allow children to undergo these anatomy and mutilating surgeries without their parents' knowledge or approval, passing bills that allow teachers to treat every single parent as a threat in order to say that they needed to do all of these things behind their child's back to protect them. And if they had filled the parents in on what they were doing, that would have been the danger to the child. This is an idea that has been debunked numerous times by parents who have experienced their child being transed behind their back, who have had to defend themselves to activist school boards that hiding it from them was totally unnecessary and that they would have absolutely been a support system to their child in this difficult time and in this struggle. But the thing is, they want to paint all Christian conservative parents or all conservative or all Christian parents on any spectrum as a threat so that they can keep doing these things in secret. And the agenda is to sever the parent-child relationship and to destroy families. 9 times out of 10, what these people are usually calling bigoted and hateful behavior from parents is the parent simply asking questions or not wanting to affirm an identity that was more than likely pushed on their child, who had no issue with being a boy or a girl until their teacher or school counselor told them that it was a problem. And this last comment from Danielle Radcliffe was the icing on the cake that we were all just waiting for.
There are also people who do have like a slightly condescending but well-meaning attitude of like, well, people are young and like, how do we, you know, it is a huge decision. I'd love to hear from all of you about like why we can trust kids to like tell us who they are.
So tell me you know nothing about children without telling me you know nothing about children. These kids are young and they are highly impressionable, and they still live in a bubble where everything around them affirms this identity. And they're still under the impression that opposition to their identity is solely out of hate and bigotry. These kids haven't been faced with any situations where they have to understand the connection between their mind and their biology. Like situations like with Chloe Cole, where she was convinced to have her breasts amputated at the age of 15, and she never really thought about whether or not she wanted to have her own children in the future, or whether or not she would want to breastfeed them. And it, you know, because that's not the things that 15-year-old kids or 11-year-old kids are thinking about. It wasn't until she actually took a minute to ponder that question that she realized what had been stolen from her before she even had a chance to understand what it meant in her life. And there's no going back once these decisions are made, but there's no possible way for any of these kids to understand what is happening right now or the long-term consequences of it, because all of them have been manipulated into the total delusion that all male and female natural tendencies and instincts are a social construct, and that they will never experience any of these natural tendencies that we've come to associate with biological sex, and that they're never going to regret what's happened to them. This 11-year-old kid, or the one that said that they transed when they were 6, they have no idea what it's going to be like to stunt their puberty with potent drugs, or the havoc that extreme levels of hormones being pumped into their body for years is going to have on their growth. Puberty blockers have been proven to have permanent effects on the development of your anatomy, preventing male sex organs from fully developing and eliminating any possibility of experiencing sexual pleasure at any time in your life. And if you've been following Jazz Jennings, when he was pushed into having this penile inversion surgery to make something that resembles female anatomy at the age of 17, because of the puberty blockers that he'd been on for so many years, there wasn't enough skin to do the surgery as needed. So they had to take skin from other parts of his body to make it work. And the doctors have said that there are so many complications that they have never planned for. And Jazz is now in his 20s and admitted recently that he's spiraling into negativity and that he never feels like himself. And this is what you are putting on these young kids, and you are fully expecting that they are never going to have this moment when they get older. Either that, you just don't care, and that makes it a million times worse, and that makes you intentionally evil. And if you want to talk about making informed decisions or spreading informed messages, Daniel, then you might want to understand the Trevor Project fully, because this is the organization that you chose to partner with in this messaging. I know that it is labeled as a suicide prevention charity, but pretty much everything the left does is labeled as something to make us better, to make our lives better, to give us some kind of support or resource, and every single thing ends up doing the opposite of what it's labeled to do. This article that I found, that, you know, a mom that dove into some of the things that the Trevor Project offers, it says, Undercover mom discovers depravity in Trevor Project's trans chat room, supposedly for youth. This mom had a child that was experiencing gender dysphoria, and she and her husband socially transitioned this child a few years ago, because in New York, it is considered illegal to not affirm your child, because not affirming them is considered a form of conversion therapy. After socially transitioning her child was then hospitalized 3 times for self-harm. And it clearly wasn't because their parents didn't accept them or were judgmental of them or made their life difficult. It was because this person was allowed to self-ID and to put themselves into a diagnosis that was completely incorrect and pursue treatment that had nothing to do with what they were struggling with. They were pushing this one-size-fits-all treatment, which is something that the left and even Joe Biden himself accuses conservatives of doing. Because her child was hurting themselves, she went on a search for detrans resources, which are extremely limited. I mean, if you want to get hormones and puberty blockers or mutilate your body, it is easy. You can do it after a phone call or a Zoom call. And I have seen numerous stories of this happening. But if you want to get help after you realize the mistake that you've made, you are essentially on your own. So that is the trans community that we're talking about here. In Trevor's space, she got a bird's eye view of the progressive nonprofit giant that is claiming to save young lives, but is really driving them further into existential rabbit holes, depravity, and potential danger, she said. She documented kids talking about how to buy binders and undergarments that constricts breasts behind their parents' back. Throughout the article, she talks about how the different subforms that the Trevor Project has on this chat group, including transitioning, fashion and beauty, dysphoria, and gender queer, non-binary and gender fluid. And then it talks about all of these, medications that they can access and all of these things that they can do without their parents' knowledge. That is so incredibly dangerous for kids to be able to access potent drugs that can literally halt the physical and mental development of their bodies and minds without their parents knowing. What if something were to happen? What if they had an allergic reaction to it? What if their body reacted horribly to this stuff and their parents have no idea what it is that they're accessing? How is this any different than a kid trying to get any other kind of drug or prescription or medication without their parents knowing? And this is what the Trevor Project is doing. Rachel then dove into an abyss of concerning sexual conversation. Some transgender identifying adults confessed in detail their masturbation, addictions, and experiences with autogynephilia, the propensity of male to become sexually aroused by the thought of himself as a female, as well as autoandrophilia, the propensity of a female to become sexually aroused by the thought of herself as a male. And it talks about different kind of sexual preferences, including BDSM, polyamory, and others. Users over 18 asked what paraphilia, what's the weirdest sexual thing that you know? And these are conversations that minors are having. Adults are allowed into the conversation and they are talking about some of the most depraved aspects of sexuality, sexual interactions. And again, all of this is happening without their parents' knowledge. These kids' brains are literally being psychologically harmed as they're pulled into the darkest spaces of the internet without their loved ones being able to protect them from it. Then Danielle Radcliffe said, if you're going to talk about trans kids, it might be useful to actually listen to trans kids. It's a firm belief of the left and people who believe this stuff that the position of current conservatives are coming from this total place of ignorance, that we operate like the left, which is to just believe what we're told, that we don't do any research, that our position is entirely like their belief system, politically based, and that, like them, we just go along with things because it's what our political party tells us to go along with. These people have absolutely no idea how much we actually do listen to trans kids, probably far more than they do. We also listen to the teachers who want to hide things from parents. We listen to doctors who are insane enough to advocate for sterilizing children, and who are on video admitting that they added these gender surgeries to their menu of services because of not only how much money the surgery makes them, but also the fact that these kids will be medical patients for the rest of their lives, meaning they're going to basically provide ongoing revenue to the medical establishment forever. We listen to kids repeat talking points that they cannot possibly understand, knowing full well that the adults in their lives spend a lot of time reassuring them that what they're doing is totally normal and natural, and doing everything that they can to reaffirm them every single day. Because like Jazz Jennings' mom, they know that what they're doing is completely irreversible, and if they let their kid question it for 1 second and let their child connect with their real feelings, their child is also going to eventually realize the part that their own parent played in the destruction of their perfectly healthy body. And these parents are desperate to not be held accountable for their actions. We listen to this rapidly growing group of detransitioners, the ones who are immediately ostracized and targeted by the trans community once they are old enough to fully grasp how deeply they were preyed upon. They're harassed and called transphobic by the same people who told them they were trans. And not that long ago, they were just like these kids that Danielle Radcliffe is talking to right now. We listen to the girls who had their breasts chopped off as teenagers, and the guys who were put on puberty blockers as kids, and now as grown adult males still sound and look like prepubescent boys. We listen to the pain and devastation caused by drugs and treatments that these kids are told are temporary, and that it was that these things are just giving them the opportunity to pause puberty, but that they can change their mind at any time and that everything will go back to its natural course, only to learn the hard way that they were lied to and that the effects are permanent. And if you really want to understand this issue and actually be a voice for the marginalized, spend 5 minutes with a detrans kid. But you won't, because you don't actually listen. Your entire career, Daniel, is based on repeating the lines that you're given and playing the part that you're supposed to play. You don't have to listen, and you don't have to live with the consequences of the ignorance, the misinformation, and the harm that you're spreading. Please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below, please share it with others. I would love it if you would subscribe, help me to grow this channel, hit the notification bell, or at least make sure the notification bell has not been turned off so you can be notified every time I post a video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.